Greetings, everyone. If you're here, you are in the room for Tami Simon's presentation. I just want to welcome everybody who's here. There's Tami. My name is Jenny Wade, and I have the honor of introducing Tami Simon. As most of you know, she is a very successful founder and entrepreneur. Her company is Sounds True. It's one of the world's leading media companies focused on disseminating spiritual wisdom. She is also the host of the Sounds True podcast, Insights at the Edge, and the Inner MBA training program that I hope she'll be speaking more about. She's going to lead us in bringing openness, sensitivity, clarity, and strength. That is your full heart and your soul's gifts to the inner work of leadership. And this is going to be a more interactive session. Tami will be taking questions and so forth from the chat. So as she's talking, or as you think about it now, if you have questions that you'd like to ask Tami, please put them in there, and we'll be opening this conversation for everybody who's in the room with us. Tami, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, friends. Welcome. I'd also love for as many people who are here that are inspired, who want to bring their voices forward to participate. You'll have the opportunity. You can just go under reactions, raise your hand, and I'll bring you into the conversation. Leading with loving presence is not a spectator sport. So if you're interested, it's a very active, engaged type of bringing yourself forward. And I'd love to meet as many of you who are interested in that, meeting loving presence to loving presence. So a few things to share. I don't know how many of you were at the women's panel yesterday, but I thought it was really interesting, the emphasis that emerged on the panel around the integration of opposites of all kinds. And we're integrating these energetics. We started by talking about masculine and feminine, but then I started writing a list of all of these different opposing, you could say, or different aspects of a spectrum that I have needed to integrate myself in my own life. And I heard myself go so far as to say, what's it like to be a wave and a particle at the same time? And I was like, wow, you're really taking this conversation about masculine and feminine really far, Tami. But I went there because I think even in my own spiritual quest, at a certain point, I was like, it's oneness. We're all connected. It's all waves. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm a particle. Nobody else is in this body. No one else is taking responsibility for my dental care except me, these teeth. And so I had to re-own my particle nature as well as my wave-like nature to realize that they both were coexisting, and that depending on the lens of the situation, I was either particly or wavy, but always kind of both. So that's kind of taking it to the extreme. We're not talking now about kind of masculine and feminine attributes. We're talking about being the universe and being an individual at the same time. Now, when it comes to work and leading with loving presence, some of the polarities that have been really important for me personally to integrate, here's one: a task orientation and a relational orientation. So I'm a very task-oriented person. You know, even this morning I woke up, I do this almost every Saturday, and I made my little list with little boxes, and this is what I'm going to do on the weekend. I'm going to check all those little boxes. I'm just super task-oriented. I like to get stuff done. And I remember a consultant came into Sounds True about 15 years ago, and he said to me, you know, Tami, you're very successfully embodying half of leadership. You have an incredible vision. People are inspired by you. You get a lot of stuff done, but people don't feel as connected to you. heart-wise, relationally, as you really want for your company to thrive. And he's like, you need to write on your task list, walk around the building and talk to everybody for 2 hours once a week. And I had such an interesting response inside. And this was a while ago. And I was like, I'd rather just quit. And he was like, whoa, what's going on, girl? Like, what's going on inside of you that you don't want to connect with people? What's happening inside your heart? And I was like, yeah, what is happening inside of me? Like, what is going on? I have to slow down. That's a big thing. I don't like slowing down. I want to do my thing, speed, whatever. I have to receive them. And so I developed the relational side of me to the point now, you ready for this? I think I might be kind of both. Oh my God, once again, I mean, I'm pretty relationally oriented. I genuinely care about people. I'm actually interested in them, which 15 years ago, I was like, I'm not, and now I'm like, oh, that's so curious. Your kid likes to, play with rosemary leaves that they pick from the, like what? I just got so interested. Okay. So that's just an example. I think in my own life, another example of bringing together things that could seem like polarities is something like strength and sensitivity. That's also something for me. I just finished this morning on Saturdays, I do a major powerlifting workout. And, I love it. I'm lifting a lot of weight. I have a trainer comes in on Zoom and we kill it. We push it every time. We're talking about the trap bar, bench pressing, all of this. And what I've found is that it's actually made it safe inside my own inner ecology for more of my sensitive nature to be present. I'm okay. I used to hide my sensitive nature. I was like, people from the outside said, Tami, you're like a rough, tough cream puff in there. It's a cream puff inside. And that is, people don't say that anymore because I'm like, look, my heart contains a kind of exquisite sensitivity and I'm okay having it on the outside. I don't need to hide it. I don't need to protect against it. I can take care of myself and process all the feelings. I have enough strength inside to match the tender, sensitive nature. So those are just some examples, I think, when it comes to leading with loving presence, how we can each weave together things that at first appear native to us. Oh, that's not native, but that thing that's not native, actually, when it comes in, we become more whole and, dare I say, more powerful and better leaders, because we're integrated. We're integrated people. Now, there's another framework that I want to share with you related to this whole idea of leading with loving presence. And I'm going to take it a step further. And this isn't to be self-congratulatory in any way, but it's to show a kind of aspiration of our inner world being animated in our leadership, which is what might it be like to lead with brilliant loving presence, brilliant loving presence. And when I talk about why I'm adding that word brilliant in. So in my experience of being a meditator and then somebody who started practicing Qigong and did different kinds of inner energetic explorations, one of the things I discovered was the living experience that's known in Qigong as the elixir fields, or 3 dantians that live at the belly, the heart, and inside our head. So an elixir field, meaning it's like a field of energy that if it's flowing and animated and lit up, you can draw on its capacities. And the belly center, which connects down into the earth through our legs and through the energy that comes, that's a sense of here-ness. I'm here. I'm planted. I'm grounded. You can't push me around. You can't push me around because my feet coming up into the belly, bam, that here-ness from the lower belly, that kind of presence. And then in our heart's elixir field, that's a kind of radiant energy. We can call it loving, but it's moving out, it's embracing people, it's caring about people. And what's interesting about all of these dimensions is that there isn't really a limit on the expansive nature of the elixir field. So when you're down in and I hope this isn't getting too esoteric, I'm trying to share with you what's actually going on for me, because what's actually going on for me, the outer things, okay, that's what people can see, but the inner things, in my experience, that's where the action is, that's where it's interesting, that's where it's fresh, that's where it's new, that's where it's always coming into form in a new way. I mean, to me, that's what turns me on the inside. So I'm sharing myself with you here. You see things on the outside, okay, whatever. I want to talk about the inside. So these elixir fields don't know any end. That's also the wave-like nature of who we are. We think it's our legs, right? But where do they go? Down into the earth. They don't stop. They keep rooting. Deeper and deeper and deeper rooting. And our heart, it doesn't stop either. It's endless. It just goes out and out and out. It could embrace the entire universe, possibly, the field from our heart. And then this capacity for, in business, they call it innovation, or, what's your unique brand value proposition? The unique brand value proposition that nobody's ever had. It's unique. Okay, well, where's that going to come from? It's not going to come from like Googling stuff. It's not going to come from, dare I say, Chat GPT. It's not going to come from history. It can't. It's not a recycling of what's happened. If you're going to have something that's actually truly never been here before, it has to come from this fresh kind of brilliance that, from my inner energetic experience, it comes through the top of the head and it comes into the head center, and it's like starlight or star galactic. Whoa! So now you have all three elixir fields in you that you're drawing on. And sometimes you'll meet leaders and they're really brilliant and they're really grounded, but their heart is like a walnut. And it's like, what? What's going on with that person? Do I trust them? I don't. I want to hear what they have to say. They have some interesting strategic ideas, but something in me is not. And then other times you meet people, beautiful heart, but it's like their earth power isn't really there. And you're like, okay, beautiful heart. I don't know if I want to invest a whole lot of money in them, because they're going to get pushed around. They're not going to be able to hold their own and make it happen and have that kind of power from the ground up. Okay, so that's another model for me of what it means to lead with, dare I say it, and as I said, it's not so much, I'm not trying to be self-congratulatory, it's aspirational for me to lead with brilliant, loving presence. And then the third thing, and then let's open it up and we can have some dialogue and keep going, is I was thinking about the Inner MBA. You mentioned that, Jenny, and the training program that we offer, and how important it is that we created the program to cover three different dimensions of leading with loving presence. And, Jenny, you and I met through Ken Wilber and integral work. What was that, 20 years ago or something like that? And
it was in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago. And when I first heard the integral model, I remember I spent an evening at Ken Wilber's house, and I said to him, I've learned more. I went way into the morning, so it's like started at 8 p.m. and I was still there at 4 a.m. or something like that. I can't remember. It was a really long conversation in Boulder, Colorado, and I said, I've learned more in the last 7 hours than I learned in the last 7 years. So that was true. I was in my late 20s or early 30s. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But since then, the integral model has just kind of become part of me. I don't even really think about it as a model anymore. It's just sort of how I think about things in a way and how I look at things. So even when I look at something like leading with loving presence, to me, there's a personal dimension to that, an I dimension. There's the interpersonal dimension to that. What does that mean? And then you could say there's a structural dimension. And as people who are leading at this time, we need to, I believe, address all three. And in the Inner MBA, we devote a trimester, 3 months, to each one of these dimensions. So it starts with us, the I dimension. And one of the trainers in the Inner MBA is a gentleman named Jeremy Hunter, who teaches at the Peter F. Drucker School of Management. And he quotes Peter F. Drucker, which is, before we try to manage other people, could we please learn to manage ourselves? And yes, like, bam, could we please engage in self-management? What does that mean when it comes to leading with loving presence? It means that you're aware of your reactivity. You're aware of it. You're aware of your behavior. You're aware of your emotions. You've learned how to act emotionally, skillfully with other people. You're not acting them out. You're not suppressing them. You're letting their intelligence bubble up inside of you, emotions, that is, give you the information they need, move through you, and then you act in skillful ways. So that's the first part, the personal dimension. If we're going to lead with loving presence, let's develop a lot of self-awareness, self-reflection. Let's take time out to write things to ourselves, have dialogues, have a coach work with you, give you reflections so you can see yourself from a lot of different perspectives. Don't just plow through with your thing, but learn to self-manage. All right. The second part, the interpersonal dimension of loving presence. It's so important. It's how we interact with each other. What kind of teammates are we? Are people like, oh my God, I love working with you. You lift me up. Every time we're in a meeting, you lift me up. You find a way to say something or other. And when I end the meeting, I feel a little bit more, even when I start the meeting, my energy could be down, but by the end of the meeting, whoa, I just feel I feel inspired. There's a sense of possibility. Maybe we went through something hard, but we still ended with some sense of we're a team and we're going to go get it. We're a team and we're going to go get it. I feel heard by you, a big thing. Everybody needs to be heard. There's room for my voice here. Oh my God, there's room for my voice. Someone wrote in here, less blaming, feeling grateful, for sure. I mean, we end our meetings at Sounds True, our leadership team meetings. And I learned this from John Mackey at Whole Foods. And, whatever you think of John Mackey's politics and whatever you think of Whole Foods, Whole Paycheck, I thought this was a very brilliant thing that he suggested, which is if you end your meetings on a note of appreciation, even when you've gone through a hard 2-hour meeting, see how it feels. And so we started experimenting with it. And there's no demand to be appreciative, meaning sometimes we end our meetings and occasionally nobody has anything to say. That happens. There's 11 people in the room and nobody feels genuinely appreciative. So we just end. But that's very rare. Most of the time, 2, 3, 4 people, and then sometimes everyone in the group says, I really want to appreciate so-and-so because she got this thing done for me that was really tough, and she did it on a Wednesday night. And, I'm just so grateful that you did that. And, and I look around at the Zoom squares and I see in my heart, do I have anything to say? And, here's the thing, because as somebody who often, I told you that I'm naturally task oriented. Well, I'm also naturally seeing what's wrong. Kind of like, I'm not saying it's a great quality. It's kind of like an attorney. Like if I read a whole thing, I'll see the one thing that's wrong. And, I walk into a room like that in our house and I don't see the things that are right at first. I see what's wrong. That's just like the way. Now I've trained myself though. I have trained myself and I made a vow. This was about 10 years ago. And I made a vow that every time I feel appreciative, I will express it every single time. Every single time. So that means I'll write an email to the person afterwards. Like I didn't express it in the moment, but later I went on a walk and I thought, it's really remarkable that that person did X, Y, Z. That was so kind that they did blah, this or that. And I write them a little text or a little note. And you know how much it shifted? my relationships with people, they started feeling my loving presence instead of just my intensity. People always appreciated the intensity, but they also didn't necessarily feel that loving presence. And it was simply the vow I made, which was when I notice something good, give voice to it, say it, tell the person, write them a note. So the interpersonal dimension is after the personal. That's where we need to do it. That's where it gets tested. And we can get feedback from people, which is so important because we're coming from the inside, but they're having their experience. Are we committed to knowing their experience, to taking it in, to seeing how we can meet them more, the learning for us? All right, and then the last dimension, the structural dimension. Often I hear people and they'll say, look, this is all great, the personal, the inner, but I'm part of this terrible organization and we're part of this terrible form of capitalism. And this all sounds very naive and like, good for you, Tami, glad you're being a good person in the terrible business world. Look at like, we're like fish swimming in this toxic sea. Come on, address the toxicity. And of course, they're right. And what I would say is that is why we are strong on the personal and interpersonal, so we can be the change agents structurally. That's us. That's us at this moment in human history. We have to create different kinds of organizations. We have to demand that our organizations reflect our values. And if they don't, leave them and find other people who do share your values and work with them. Find people who want to be part of B corporations. And the B Corp movement, Something Sounds True is in the process of applying, is just one way that organizations have made a commitment to certification that includes justice and equity as part of the way they operate their company. So there's a lot of organizations out there who are doing that who aren't B Corps. But if you're like, well, where do I go? Well, look at the B Corp directory and see if there's an organization there that you might want to be a part of. But I guess my point is we can spend a whole lot of time, and I started on this note about spectator sport. We can spend a whole lot of time on the outside being critics, and that's not where we need to go. And I don't believe that's really loving presence. I don't. I think loving presence comes with an imperative to change the current structures of business and economics such that we start to flourish at work. Our organizations start to flourish. Humans start to flourish. I mean, this is what the human species needs, and it needs us to be those kinds of leaders and creators, really creative change agents. And we can do it, and we can support each other in doing it. And that's a lot of what this Inner MBA program is about, is we're creating a community of thousands of people who are committed to this and who are helping each other. So that tells you a little bit about my sense of what it might begin to mean to lead with loving presence from a few different perspectives. But I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what your questions are and what you came here to learn or what you want to hear more about. And yeah, we have Leanne.
Hi, thank you very much, Tami. And Jenny, I didn't put a question in the chat because it's not really a question, it's just more of where I was going in my thought process. With the explanation, Tami, that you just shared about the Qigong 3 centers, the head, the heart, and the belly. And I made this relationship in my mind as you were speaking to the relationship between belonging and authenticity, and how Gabor Mate says that if you don't belong anywhere and you can't be yourself, then you'll never get to like this flow state of creativity. Behavioral or humanistic psychology says the same. If you can't be your full self. And so I related it to like the heart being that connection of being able to express yourself and accepting others, that exchange when we're talking about interpersonal dynamics. And then the feet or the belly being like this grounded state of being able to really truly being present. And then with a combination of those, you can get to the creative place with the mind and that connection to your higher self or your creative flow. So I just wanted to make that relationship and wondered if you
Thank
had
you.
anything to share about that.
Well, I think this notion of us being our authentic selves, whether that's at work or everywhere, anywhere, every moment, is a very important point to underline. And I appreciate Gabor being such an outspoken person for the power of authenticity and how many of us early in our life, in order to feel attached and that we belonged within our family system, compromised some aspect of our authenticity. And I think that's the situation most of us find ourselves in. Like in my case, my family was very rational, supposedly, on the outside, not really underneath the surface, but on the outside. And I acted like I was primarily a mentally oriented person. The truth is, I'm not. I'm not. I'm like a feeling being, but I adapted in this system. And I'm just giving this as an example because I thought I would be a professor or something. And I had to drop out of academia in order to find my true voice and true way of learning. And Sounds True came from that because I realized that I learned from dialogue and conversation with people, and that I didn't learn in kind of abstract intellectual ways. And that when I tried to be very intellectual, I felt disembodied. It's weird. I was like, I've left my body in order to write this paper. I don't like this. Something doesn't feel right. But I'm not fitting into Swarthmore College. No, you're not, Tami. So I think I'm sharing that story because often many of us find to come into our authenticity, we have to go against certain, whether they're familial norms or cultural norms or business norms, all kinds of things in order to really come into our power and our truth. And that it's a journey and it can be tough, but it's the journey we have to make. And we have to use all of our inner resources to do it. And it also liberates our inner resources when we do it. So anyway, I don't know if that's Leanne, if that is a conversational response that's meaningful for you in some way.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah, I just wanted to get your insight. And I wonder if anyone else has anything to share about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing your voice forward here in the Zoom room. Thank you. Stephanie.
Just a second, if you don't mind, Stephanie, we've had a question in the chat for some time that because of the flow of the conversation, we didn't get to. So I just want to honor this. Anybody else who has questions, you can either raise your hand or put them in the chat. This one is from PF. That's the only identifier I have here. The question is whether you have any unique advice for someone who's been ostracized from working at all because I've been afraid to shine in my true power, have withdrawn to know my power, and now don't know how to activate movement within it and get back into a healthy flow of exchange between myself, what I can offer, and the world.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but have you guys ever seen the model Ikigai or something? And it's about how our strengths and the gifts we have intersect with the needs of our community, society, world, and how that intersects with what people will pay for. And you're finding that place at the center of those intersections. So we all have strengths and talents and things that come naturally to us. And believe me, you might think yours are strange. I mean, my strengths and talents are having conversations with people. Really? You think you can make a living talking to people? Well, as it turns out, you can. Actually, you can. I like learning. You think, you can make a living if you really like learning. Do you like learning with other people? Before you know it. So like whatever the thing is that's like, oh, wow, yes, Yes, I love this. That's one part of it. But then this part is so important, which is what's the actual need that people have? What do people want? Because you want to trade value for value you're delivering. You have to deliver value. What's the need people have? Like, for example, this is just an example. Just last week, I was at a conference and I interacted with 3 different authors and had these 2-hour-long conversations with them. And they all had the same set of challenges. I'm trying to grow my email list. I'm trying to have more social media followers. I'm not quite sure. I can't find a marketing company that will help me, that really understands me from the inside out. These marketing companies come in and they impose these simple pain solution type things, and that's not who I am. They don't take the time to really read my work. So can you help me solve this problem? And after I talked to the 3rd author, I thought maybe I should start a company that just does that for our authors. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I was like, maybe I should find someone who does want to do that, and I can like mentor them and help them do that, because look at this need that's there. It's clear. Like, I see the pattern. 3 different people are like, please give me a marketing company that understands online courses, social media, and how to keep the genuine taproot and doesn't turn me into some, whatever, money grubbing person, please lead with real authentic marketing. It's like, whoa, okay. So we have to look out and see the patterns of need. What's the real demand out there? You can think of it in business as like a demand wave. Like, I'm just sharing with you my interests in businesses that I'm not going to start. But like, one of them is I'm very interested in boats that run on electric power and not on fossil fuels. And that's because I live in the Pacific Northwest now. I'm really interested in boating, but I refuse to have a hobby that involves the release of fossil fuels. I refuse. Can't make it my hobby. But I'm in a kayak, I'm floating around, but I'd really like to go across the water and get some French fries, if you want to know the truth, at this really good place, because there's nothing quite like getting in a boat, going across the water and having, an alcoholic beverage and French fries. I mean, it's awesome, but I'm not into the fossil fuel thing. So what do? That's a problem. Believe me, some talented entrepreneurs, they're already solving it. They haven't done it at scale yet, but they will, and the boat will run fast and it will happen. Just giving you examples. I think you get the point. There's clearly a demand curve, because I'm not the only person who wants to go boating and is very concerned about dolphins and whales and seals and etc. There's a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest and across the whole world who feel that way. Okay, so you have to, there's your passion, what you're good at, what you love, what you would do even if you weren't being paid. Even if I wasn't being paid, I'd be reading spiritual books and talking to spiritual teachers. You can't keep me from it. You can't stop it. I mean, I'm on this evolutionary journey that is my heartbeat. And there was a demand. What's the demand for what you do? The demand in my world was, could somebody please make sure that the riffraff aren't included when you put out spiritual teachings? Because I don't want to be part of some weird snake oil thing. And also, could you help me kind of make sense of this whole landscape that's so crowded, and I can't quite tell what an intelligent architecture would be to understand what's going on with these ideas that seem contradictory? And it was like, oh, okay, there's a need. I can fill that need. And then you have to figure out how to make it economically make sense in a way that uses good business fundamentals. Another way of saying it is you have to have a margin. Has to be a profit margin in what you're doing. And that profit can get reinvested to do more of it. It can go to pay people more and more of what you're doing. It can go to your infrastructure to make things better. But if you don't have a business that's leading with good business fundamentals, it won't last. It won't last. It won't last decade after decade after decade. So anyway, this person who wrote in and was like, I felt ostracized. I went inside, and now I'm looking at how do I go back out into the world. I've offered some ideas, but I think one of the important things is that we all need support. We don't do it alone. We need a couple people. We need people who share our vision. people who are excited about what we're excited about. So I think one of the first things is to find some support. Find some people who are like, I'm really excited about that too. And, yeah, you're a little different, but I'm a little different too. We're both excited about this. We see it. And so once you have a few people in you and a shared vision, business fundamentals, and a real need, you're off. You're ready to roll. Okay, that was my long answer.
Okay, so there's a couple of raised hands. Do you want to just?
Well, I think Stephanie was going to ask a question, and then you're feel done. You're ready to roll. Okay, Elizabeth.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak more to the structural piece, because you have such a bird's eye view of this landscape of spiritual business. And maybe I'll give a little background. So I have I'm a yoga teacher, and I have an online business, and I'm a one person show. And I was mentored by a senior Bikram yoga teacher. And I was also personally mentored by Amrit Desai, which are two names that are problematic. So I've thought a lot about the structure of my business and the structure of my teaching and how not to do what was done to me and to the people around me. And I'm always interested to hear more about that piece, because I think, it's a structural issue. This power imbalance is a structural issue. So I'm wondering what you're seeing from your kind of bird's eye view and having such a wide perspective.
Right. Well, one thing, just to be very direct, I was part of a meditation community for a long time. And without going into the details, there were things about it. There weren't sexual trespasses, but there were things about it that to me were definitely not empowering to people, and that allowed teachers to get away with really bad behavior and not be held accountable for it. And the commitment that I made was that I would be a different kind of teacher, and that I also saw business people who had philosophies like the ends justify the means, which I don't believe. I don't believe that. So I don't believe that it's worth trespassing on people or getting a really good deal. So I don't believe that. I believe you should always get a balanced deal, because if you're actually in a felt way connected with everyone, it wouldn't be, so I got a good deal off an author. That would feel terrible to me, because I also am that author. And that's where, Thich Nhat Hanh teaches this interdependence where, it's like you're hurting your own foot, right? So what I'm getting at is the commitment I made. I could sit around and I could criticize people. Once again, criticism, it's really, look, it's kind of fun. You get all the righteous energy running through your body and everything. I'm not saying, but it doesn't get you anywhere, really. And after a while, it's actually even not that much fun. It doesn't even really feel that good. What really feels good is committing to being a person of integrity and being a different kind of leader. So you get to be a different kind of yoga teacher. You're a different teacher. You're not going to fall into those pitfalls. You're not going to have power over in a way that creates harm. In fact, you'll probably make sure you create a whole lot of safety for the people who are in your yoga class, and you'll figure out ways to communicate how safe it is, and you'll receive feedback from people. So I think when it comes to solving structural problems, it's best to involve the people who are involved. So for example, I wouldn't try to solve how do we create work-life balance, it sounds true, from a top-down kind of way. I've decided how we're going to do it, guys. I've sat there with my notebook and decided, no, I need everyone in the room. We need to talk about it. We're all in this together. How do we do it? These are the economic pressures we're under. They're real. We don't have some, bags and bags of dollars that are there to support our independent media company. We don't. If we blow it, if we blow that margin that I talked about, we won't have a business. So we have to honor that. And we want people to be mothers and fathers and sisters and grandparents. We want you to have time for so how do we design this together? And it's amazing when you go to solve structural problems and you don't do it from a power over, but you do it from a power with, you really get someplace. So it sounds true. We have councils. Now you said you're a solo operator, so it might not be, this may not have as much, might not land with you with as much practical implications, but it sounds true. We have about 150 employees. And so we have councils to solve problems like this, where people are coming from all different levels of the company, people who maybe wouldn't normally work together, and they take the issues that we're facing and they solve them together. And I think that's the best way. You need a lot of input from a lot of people. But I decided I was going to be somebody that I respected. It sounds kind of simple. It's not simple. You know, what it's forced me to do is I have to apologize often when I make a trespass of some kind, which could be interrupting somebody before they finished saying what they're saying, which is a bad habit historically that I've had. And I've actually said to people in the room, I want you, when I do that, to stop me in my tracks and say, you're interrupting me right now, please let me finish. And it's like, that's in a meeting where, you know, I'm the CEO, and yet I've said, please don't let me do this. It's just this bad, Tami's in a rush to get her point across. And I think I already know what you're going to say, which is not fair, you know? So anyway, Elizabeth, does that help some?
It does. If I could just ask, is it okay to ask a
Yeah,
follow-up?
please.
So are you seeing any, so one thing I've thought a lot about is price, and like you're saying, margin and price, and remove barriers to entry for people as much as possible, and having, you know, options that are accessible, and then also having a margin. And I'm wondering if you're seeing like any unique structures.
Sure, yeah.
You know, just very practically, like business,
Yeah, sure.
the way businesses are structured and prices are structured and things like that.
Sure. Well, I think that there can be this idea of like, and we've tried it, it sounds true, pay what you want. We haven't found that very successful because people don't pay very much, and then we don't have enough money to run our company. And people also don't know, how much should I pay for this? Pay what you want? I don't know. So people need guidelines on what to pay. Now, what we've done, it sounds true, and this has worked really well for us, is we charge what we need to charge. And we say to people, if you can't afford this, and we still want you to have it, so apply for a scholarship. We have a very generous scholarship policy. And you have to answer 11 questions. Now, a bunch of people don't even want to answer 11 questions. And I'm like, wow, you don't want to answer 11 questions to get a $300 program that you say you really want and that's going to change your life, and you won't answer 11 questions? Something's wrong. You don't really want it, or something. Like, how active a learner are you really going to be? So either people pay for it or they fill out the 11 questions. And then we say to the people who are filling out the scholarship form, what can you afford to pay that works for you? And so if it's a $300 program, somebody might say $25. And we say, okay, come on into the program. The door is open for you. And, you know, at Sounds True, we created a foundation. So we have a Sounds True Foundation as well as Sounds True Inc. Because I didn't want to be somebody who was like, oh, the only way to get this information is if you're, you know, in this economic echelon. At the same time, I wanted to take advantage of, and I wanted to use the resources of some very wealthy people who want to make sure spiritual wisdom is distributed broadly. And I'm like, okay, great. I'll be a conduit for you. I'll help you. You can write checks, 20,000, 100,000, write them, and we'll make sure that this material makes it into prisons, makes it into low-income libraries, makes it to refugee centers. We'll get really creative about it. And, you know, we've raised millions of dollars over the last few years through the foundation to support those efforts. So some of it is starting to think really creatively. Here's another thing. What do you have that you can give away for free that will really help people? And then you still charge for things. So for example, I love the fact that my weekly podcast, which when it goes live, it gets downloaded right away, something like 30, 40,000 times right within the first few days, is free. It's free. And guess what? It also inspires people to buy books and buy programs we create. So it's also functioning like marketing. And I try to make sure it's not like there's a cliffhanger, buy the book to get the answer. No, we're going to put all the answers in. We're going to give you everything we can. Because guess what? If you play all your aces or whatever metaphor you want to use and people love it, they're going to be a lot more likely to buy the book and help all these people who are getting the content for free. Help them. So there's lots of creative ways you can do it. You could decide that you want to do a yoga class for free once a week. Hi, this is my pro bono class. I do it every week. I stream it. It's all free. Great. What I found is the more good free, the more you sell, actually. And so you just have to find that right combo for it and know in your heart that what you're trying to do, and this is the key, is, I'm here to be of service, really genuinely. And so I want to put this stuff out and I have bills to pay. So I'm going to charge for this. And people respect it, I think.
So Tami, I don't know if I can interrupt here, but we've had other people with their hands up.
Yeah, sure. Please.
Two of them have put their hands down right now. Current hand up that I'm seeing is Ruth. If you'd come on, Ruth, and unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Hi, I just want to say hi. I've been a big fan for a long time. I listen to your podcast every week and I'm very heavily menopausal at the moment. So when I can't sleep in the night, I do go to sleep with you in my ears. And it's really lovely. And I'm a computer scientist and I've worked in computer science like for 35 years, a university lecturer. And I love the whole conversation about authenticity and leadership and stuff, but it's very difficult because quite often I'm quite a gentle, very small woman, and I have to be someone I don't want to be, sometimes to command authority because I'm not, I can be imposing, but it's uncomfortable. I guess it's boundaries as well, isn't it? But if I have a rowdy lecture theatre of young men who think they know more than I do, I feel sometimes my gender works against me in that I'm a tiny woman at the front of the room and I'm just like, I have to set boundaries and it's just like exhausting. I'm waiting for the time, which is why I signed up to this conference. I'm waiting for the time whereby people respect my authority by dint of the fact I earned my place in society, as it were, as an older woman who is in a minority in computing. Yeah.
I hear you. And I wouldn't wait for the time. I would claim the time. And I would claim the time is now. And I don't care what size I am. No, feel this energetic. And that energetic is I'm not a very tall woman by any means.
Oh, you're not. You come across
and now I'm 5'6". I'm 5'6" and a half. I'm 5'6" and a half. I know I'm not like 5'1" or something, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm trying to think. Zan Chen. So at one point, we made a self-defense video. That sounds true. And the woman who taught it, this is a long time ago, but she teaches like some kind of, it's not exactly karate, but like she was a small woman, but what I would definitely say is do not screw with her or you will. And what she said was that Zan Chen is the spirit power and that people look at you while you're walking and they can tell whether or not you're the kind of person they can take down and mug or whether or not they can't. And she's like, I'm committed to teaching women these self-defense skills so that they develop their Zan Chen. And I always think to myself, like, if anybody ever tried to screw with me, this is just what I say inside. I'm like, you picked the wrong person. You just picked
Oh
the one.
yeah. I mean, I feel like that,
yeah, that's right.
but
Right. So, but anyway, but you bring into the room, that energy. And I'm not saying this is like, walking down, but like if you walk down the street and you're kind of like, la la, and your shoes don't communicate strength and groundedness and stuff, you become a target. And same thing in any meeting that you're in. I go into meetings with people, private equity, finance guys. There's 8 guys that have like calculator minds in the room, and they're throwing all these questions at me about, all kinds of complex financial questions that I don't know the answer to, but I know I don't know the answer. And I'm like, let me get my CFO to respond to you in writing, So what I'm getting at is, don't wait for people to treat you a certain way. We can't wait. We have to claim our indomitable presence. That's my point.
No, and I love that. But sometimes, when the cat's been sick and your kids have been sick, and you just there's nothing left. There's no bandwidth. You know what I mean? And on those days,
I think when that's the case, you got to recharge yourself before getting back out there. And we all need to recharge ourselves. I think that's a really important idea. Like we're not available 24/7 to be a loving presence in the world. We also have to have deep rest. It's so important. It's the only way. It's the only way those elixir fields actually can be fully animated, is when they're nurtured by deep rest. So we need that.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you. Really appreciate being here tonight. I wasn't expecting to be in the room, so I'm like,
Ruth, I'm so glad you are. I'm so glad you are. And I'm so glad you're in the field you're in. And it's so important that women in the computer science field are outspoken and leaders. There's a group called Women Who Tech, and I've just been in touch with them over the years, and they're really making good progress with bringing women's voices forward. And I think it's so important. So I want to encourage you in what you're doing.
Thank you. Can I just tell you though, ChatGTP is not the next general AI. It works on probability. They've already lost touch of how it actually works. So, that's my sharing tonight. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good. It's impressive what it does. But if it was a human, we'd say it was phoning it in.
There you go. Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. All right. We have Lauren. I think your hand's raised.
Lauren's hand was raised and then it disappeared from my screen. I'm not sure she's
okay
with us for a question. And Stephanie earlier had a question.
Thank you, Tami. No, I feel complete.
Okay, thanks.
And I've loved listening and dancing with you all.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Jenny, did I miss any questions in the chat, or do you have any questions for me?
I'm just trying to check. Stephanie, are you okay, or you had your hand up at one point?
I did, but my questions were more personal. And so I was trying to make space for folks who had business.
But now we have a chance. You can ask your personal question.
All right. One, I actually have 2. I wanted to ask you about what it is about weightlifting that creates space for you. And also I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned it yesterday during the women's panel, what created the shift at home with not acting like the CEO with your angel?
Right. Yeah. Well, the second question, they're both good questions, so thank you. The second question was, what got me to not act like the CEO with my wife of 21 years is she did, and my therapist too. The two of them together. Took a village, but basically they were like, this doesn't work. Look what happened in your previous relationships. And if you really value Julie and you want her to stay, get the F over yourself. And so it was like, okay, I think I get it. I think it's clear. It's clear. This is my personal work, my evolutionary work, in order to have the kind of relationship that I want to have. And I really don't want to blow this, because this woman's amazing. And opportunities like this could have only come one. I do not want to blow it. So that was very inspiring to me, you know, so that's that. Now, the weightlifting thing, I think it's a combination. What I notice is that I'm more embodied, more energy runs through me, and I feel stronger all at the same time. And actually, my actual muscles are happy too. So it's a combination of all of that. And yeah, I enjoy a lot of different kinds of exercise. So it's just one kind that I like, but I like it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, I'd just like to ask you, I'm not seeing any more raised hands at the moment.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you, what are the things that you find are the biggest triggers to get you out of loving presence
That's a good question.
work?
You know, I've done a lot of work to not buy into various social norms around power, rationality, and success, and yet I'm not immune to it. I'm not immune to it. And so I think for a long time, I compared myself to certain successful CEOs and how they operated. And I found myself falling short. And so that one of the things that will definitely keep me or anybody out of loving presence is comparison, and comparing to some outside other, instead of coming from the inside out, thinking, look how this person does it. And, you know, they're so strong mathematically, or they're so good strategically, or, you know, they study all these numbers and stuff, and I'm not like that. And so I think that's been a real thing for me to grow out of.
I think that's an interesting observation, and it's not one I would have thought of right off the bat. But I think you're right. That sort of other envy or need to compare is one thing that takes you right out of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just checking to see, we've got maybe time, very quick time for one more question if somebody's raising a hand. Anybody else? It looks like Maya there is trying to raise a hand. Maya, can you come in?
Yeah, thanks. I just tried to find the button, but so I raised my real hand. Yeah, Tami, I don't know if it's really a question, but I wanted to say that I really love the way how open you are, also about personal stuff. And like yesterday on the panel, when you talked about the love to your partner, it really touched me deeply. And I feel that those, yeah, I really love how you I feel that those different aspects of life are so interconnected, like the personal level and the professional one. And I think when we really want to bring stuff from our heart into the world, and it has to be interconnected. And I'm wondering about how do you get there? And I guess it's a process and probably a lifelong one. But
Well, I'll say a couple things that I hope are helpful. One, I really value genuineness. So the company I run is called Sounds True. And that's because when I was little and people lied, like people on television and politicians and people I saw, I didn't feel safe. And I was like, this is bullshit. And I was just like, I don't want to be around it. And then when people would say something that was truthful, and I could tell it was truthful, it was like music. I relaxed and I was like, oh, that's truthful. And when people would just give me like the shell and present these things, and I could tell underneath it was something different, there was a incongruence in it, it jangled me. I didn't like it. So that's partially just who I am. I like what sounds true. And then the other thing, and this is a confidence that has grown in me over the years, is I believe in goodness. We're good. All of us right here, we're good. We're unbelievably good. Life, the goodness of life, the inherent reality itself is inherently good. So I don't have to hide something. I don't have to hide my faults. I don't have to hide these things, because underneath it all is this goodness, this beautiful golden goodness. And that's who we are. That's our hearts. That's the purity of our hearts, really. These other things are just like these cover-ups and things, but that's not what's really happening on the inside. What's really happening on the inside is a type of innocent, loving desire to be of service and to connect and to want to lift other people up and for all of us to rise together. And I think that lives inside all of us.
Thank you very much. It was a beautiful response. I hate to cut this conversation short. I think everybody's enjoying it, and there's so much to say, so much we can all learn from you, Tami. But I noticed that it's time for the session to be over. We are going into the long break for the day, which for many of those in the US is sort of the lunch hour. But of course, many of you are coming from different places. But that'll be next, and then we will start the sessions later on. But thank you so much, Tami.
And thanks, friends. Thanks for sharing this time with me and sharing your interest and listening and being in dialogue. Thank you. Thanks for your loving presence. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.